The inheritance of the old man will go to my husband, the eldest son.
Old lady, get out of the house.
These heartless words were thrown at me by Kevin and his wife as I grieved the loss of Curtis. Curtis, who had always been so considerate of Kevin and his wife, yet to be treated this way, I just couldn't accept it. The way Kevin and his wife trampled on Curtis's feelings, which he had considered so carefully, was just not right. I've reached my limit. Kevin and his wife, who only think of themselves, deserve a fitting punishment. That's why I started to take action. I thought that Kevin and his wife, who had trampled on our feelings, needed to see hell. Thus began my story of revenge. My name is Susan, a homemaker in my 70s. I live with my husband Curtis. We have a son, Kevin, who left home to work after graduating from college. He's now married to Mary and has built a family. Out of concern for us in our old age, Kevin and his wife lived nearby. Curtis and I were grateful to them, and Curtis particularly liked Kevin and his wife. After retiring early and starting to invest in stocks, Curtis amassed a considerable fortune. Now I also enjoy a luxurious life thanks to him. A house too big for just the two of us, a housekeeper who comes regularly, a future that's assuredly stable. All of this thanks to Curtis. I was deeply grateful to Curtis, and like he did, I also cherished Kevin and his wife, but that was a mistake. At first, everything was fine, and we had a good relationship, but over time, it fell apart. It started with Mary's attitude changing. She began calling me to her house for trivial reasons and burdened me with housework. For instance, she had urgent matters to attend to, or she was feeling unwell. With such made-up excuses, she'd call me over to do housework while she went out with friends or lounged on the living room sofa. "Hey, you're really feeling sick, right?" I asked Mary, who was laughing in a shrill voice while watching TV. She scowled and said, "Susan, are you doubting what your daughter-in-law is saying? That's harassment, you know." And that night, she reported it to Kevin. When Kevin came home, he was furious.
"I never thought you could be like this. Mary really admires you, Mom. And to be told such things, imagine how shocked she was."
And he scolded me harshly. It seemed unfair to me, but I also felt guilty for doing something wrong, so I could only apologize. Despite this, Kevin and his wife still seemed angry, so to mend the relationship, I took them out for a nice meal. This gesture seemed to please them, but it also created an uncomfortable tension between us. Following this incident, Kevin and his wife started asking for more and more things. Mary would beg for designer bags, and Kevin asked for expensive golf clubs to play with his friends. Honestly, since I don't work, the money comes from Curtis's wallet. I felt guilty using Curtis's hard-earned money for such things, but Curtis said,
"Why not? Buy it for them. We have the money."
So without much thought, I gave in to their demands. At first, Kevin and his wife thanked me, but gradually their attitude changed, and they started to take it for granted. "Susan, I want the new collection from this brand. You'll buy it for me, right?" Frustrated with Mary's entitlement, I snapped. "Why don't you buy it yourself once in a while? Money isn't infinite. You're relying on Curtis's money, so show some restraint." Mary raised her voice in disbelief.
"Huh? We're living nearby as a favor to you. Showing some gratitude is only natural, right? I'm even putting up with harassment from you. And yet you behave like this? I'll report this to Kevin again."
That's what she said. It seemed Mary vividly remembered the trouble caused when she reported me to Kevin before. By this time, I was too angry to back down. "If you want to report, go ahead," I ended up saying.
That night, Kevin and his wife came to our house. Kevin, red-faced, accusing,
"You're harassing my wife again?"
And he made a fuss. It was late, and Curtis and I were already sleeping. We suggested discussing it later, but they refused to leave, scolding me loudly. Tired and wanting to avoid further conflict, I just nodded to get through the moment.
"If the same thing happens again, we'll cut ties with you,"
Mary threatened with something unthinkable. These words seemed to wake both Curtis and me up, and I couldn't help but ask, "Are you serious?" To which Mary replied, "I'm serious. This is no joke. If there's trouble again, we'll cut you off without hesitation." "Right?" she asked, and Kevin nodded firmly. Being threatened like this by Kevin and his wife, whom we had always cherished, left us dumbfounded. Since then, our perception of Kevin and his wife started to change. A few months later, things took a sudden turn. Curtis fell ill and had to be hospitalized. From then on, I was busy running between the hospital and home, with no time to spare for Kevin and his wife. They never even tried to visit Curtis in the hospital. I had to inform them of where he was, but the nurses confirmed they never came. I thought it was heartless, but as Curtis grew weaker each day, my worry for him overshadowed my anger towards Kevin and his wife. After a long battle with illness, Curtis passed away, overwhelmed with grief. I could do nothing and relied on family help to prepare the funeral. Curtis was a well-respected man, and many people attended his funeral. Everyone was in tears mourning his death, but Kevin and his wife were absent till the end. Since Curtis's hospitalization, I hadn't seen Kevin and his wife, and they didn't help with the funeral preparations either. I had sent them a message about the funeral, but despite reading it, they didn't show up. It would be a lie to say I wasn't angry that Kevin and his wife, who had been so cared for by Curtis, didn't attend his funeral, but I was too consumed with grief over Curtis's death to confront them, and the funeral proceeded without issue. After saying goodbye to Curtis, I returned home to find Kevin and his wife's shoes lined up. They had entered the house without my knowledge.
"Finally, we said goodbye to that old man.
He was always so nagging, wasn't he?" I heard this conversation from the living room. Despite my bad feeling, I couldn't leave it be, and when I opened the door, Kevin and his wife rushed over to me.
"What do you think you're doing? Not even showing up at the funeral?"
I said in an uncontrollable tone of irritation, to which Mary laughed.
"Scary."
Kevin also smirked mischievously, clearly looking down on me. "If you have something to say, get on with it. I'm not free to waste time." Upon hearing this, Kevin and his wife burst into laughter and said something outrageous. "The inheritance of the old man will go to my husband, the eldest son."
"Old lady, get out of the house."
I was stunned by their words. Though I had anticipated something like this, I never expected them to actually say it. The audacity of Kevin and his wife pushed me to my limits.
"Are you two serious? Are you really saying this?"
I asked, and they nodded, still smiling. Then Kevin said,
"What's the use of dwelling on someone who's gone? We're alive, and we need to think about the future."
Following his lead, Mary chimed in. "So hurry up and give us the inheritance. Curtis made a lot, right? And we'll take this house too and live freely and happily. Isn't that a great idea?" That's what she's saying. What a ridiculous great idea. Had they forgotten all that they had done? Did they even consider how much pain their heartless behavior had caused us? What about Curtis's feelings? Curtis, who had always cared for Kevin and his wife, even during his hospital stay, worrying.
"I want to see Kevin and his wife's faces." It was unbearable. Annoyed, I retorted, "I don't think it's a good idea at all. You two really are heartless. Curtis wouldn't rest in peace with this going on." Mary's face turned red with anger. "What's with the attitude? Is it okay for you to act like this? Without us, you'll be all alone, Susan. Now that Curtis is gone, you'll be in trouble without us, won't you?" she threatened. There was some truth in Mary's words, but that didn't mean I had to cling to Kevin and his wife. I'd rather cut ties with both of them and live my life valuing my own happiness, which would surely make Curtis happier. With that in mind, I firmly refused to agree about the inheritance, no matter how much they threatened. "I will not hand over the inheritance," I persisted, finally reaching his limit. "I'm Dad's son. I have a right to the inheritance. Ignoring that is unacceptable," Kevin exclaimed. Indeed, Kevin is Curtis's son, and legally he has a right to inherit the estate. Even if he couldn't receive the full amount as Mary wished, he was entitled to a portion. "I don't care if I don't get the full amount, but once I receive the inheritance, I'll cut off all ties with you, so be prepared." With those words, Kevin and his wife left. After that, they stopped showing their faces to me, as they had declared. I felt relieved to be free from the stress caused by Kevin and his wife. But this peace didn't last long. About 2 months into my quiet life, Kevin, who had boasted about cutting ties, contacted me. "About that inheritance." Kevin's voice was tinged with panic as he explained why he was reaching out. Apparently, a few days after Curtis's funeral, Kevin and his wife, believing they would completely sever ties with me, moved to a new house. Thence they would receive a substantial inheritance. They spent lavishly on the move. A house as large as mine. In the past 2 months, believing an even larger inheritance was coming, Kevin and his wife had been living extravagantly. As a result, their savings, slowly accumulated over time, were long gone. However, no matter how long they waited, the inheritance never came through. Running out of money and feeling anxious about their future, Kevin swallowed his pride and inquired about the inheritance. There was a specific reason why Kevin hadn't received his inheritance. Feeling sorry for Kevin, I decided to explain it to him. Actually, Curtis left a will. During his hospital stay, Curtis had a lawyer come to his room to make clear instructions about his estate. "If Kevin and his wife visit me even once during my hospitalization, I will allocate some of the inheritance to them. But if they never visit, all the inheritance will go to Susan." That was Curtis's last wish. Curtis wanted to believe in Kevin and his wife until the end. He made this decision as a test for them. However, Kevin and Mary failed to meet Curtis's expectations. A deceased person's will is absolute. Since Kevin and his wife did not visit Curtis during his hospitalization, according to Curtis's words, there was no allocation of inheritance to them. When I explained this, "I didn't know that," Kevin exclaimed. "Why didn't you tell us anything? If we had known about this, we would have visited." Think about it. Curtis was trying to test you. Telling you would have defeated the purpose, wouldn't it? That's why I kept silent. But that's invalid. Give me the inheritance now. Realizing the extent of their terrible actions, Kevin, on the other end of the phone, "This is outrageous," protested loudly. "We weren't told anything, so give us the inheritance. Without it, we're helpless." Kevin's desperation to inherit was palpable. Hearing my own son repeatedly acting so selfishly made me sigh in dismay. How could anyone turn out to be such a heartless person towards their parents? Where did we go wrong? What mistake did we make? When and how could we have acted differently to prevent Kevin from growing into someone so inconsiderate of others' feelings? There seemed to be no answer. like the past which can never be changed. Even if we had gone astray somewhere, it was too late to correct it. Maybe we as his parents were also to blame. But we raised Kevin, our only son, with all the love and care we could give, and this was the result. Curtis, too, had always been concerned about Kevin, yet why did it have to end this way? I couldn't accept this unreasonable present, and my anger was directed towards Kevin and his wife. No matter what you argue, I won't waver from Curtis's will. He said if you didn't visit him during his hospitalization, not a cent of the inheritance should go to you. So I'm going to follow Curtis's words and not allocate any inheritance to you. As I said this firmly, Kevin, with a panicked tone, pleaded, "Wait, Mom. We really need the inheritance. We're almost out of money. Without it, we can't even live. I don't care about the inheritance anymore. Aren't we family? Can't you help us? Without your help, we can't even secure food for tomorrow." Kevin's desperate appeal to family bonds brought me to my limit. Enough already. What family are you talking about? You were the ones who discarded us first. And now, why do you think you can rely on me all of a sudden? Have you forgotten what you've done? I raised my voice, unable to contain my frustration. But I couldn't bear it any longer without speaking out. Curtis believed in his family's love until the very end. More than anyone else, he wanted to protect his family and cherished Kevin and his wife as family members. But the path Curtis ended up taking was a dreadful one. During his hospital stay, Curtis often worried about Kevin and his wife. He repeatedly expressed his desire to see their faces, which I communicated to them. Yet, they never visited Curtis, not even once. Unforgivably, they didn't even show up to bid farewell to Curtis. They didn't even mourn his departure. Yet they had the audacity to demand the inheritance as if it were their rightful claim. Their selfish reasoning infuriated me and filled me with an indescribable sadness. What were our feelings worth? Were we wrong to feel grateful to Kevin and his wife, to try to do everything possible for them? Those times when we could have come together as a family seem so distant now. The times when we sincerely thought we could support each other are irretrievably gone. Not that I want them back. Overwhelmed by my words, Kevin fell silent. And then I heard a voice from the other side of the phone, begging for help. "Hello? Is this Susan?" It was Mary's voice. Apparently, she had snatched the phone. I was listening to the conversation. I apologize for not visiting Curtis. But we're really in trouble now. I'm sorry for saying we'd sever ties. Even a little help would be great. Without you, Susan, we're really struggling to survive. Please don't abandon us." Mary pleaded desperately. The old me, who once thought of supporting Kevin and his wife, would have probably responded to those words. But now, feeling a sense of disgust towards Kevin and Mary, I offered no response. Impatient Mary continued, "Please help us. We're really struggling. Aren't we family? I'm sorry we moved away. If you're okay with it, can we live together in your house? Of course, I'd be happy to take care of you. Please don't abandon us." Their pleas were desperate. But what did they mean by "don't abandon us"? They had long ago abandoned us. When it was their turn to face difficulty, they pleaded not to be abandoned for their own sake. Their selfishness was overwhelming, and I couldn't help but sigh. Can you stop being so self-centered? Have you any idea how much you've betrayed us? Despite everything, we kept trying to trust you. Who betrayed those feelings over and over again? You kept betraying us, and now you expect us to join hands. Do you think I can trust you now? But, we're really sorry. We won't act like that again, I promise. Please forgive us. Believe in us." After all the betrayals, you have the nerve to ask for trust. Reflect on your actions. Looking back, we've spoiled you too much, but we really thought of you as family, even if you didn't feel the same. Mary, in a panic, tried to correct herself. Aren't we family? Don't say such terrible things. Family should help each other in tough times, right? Mary, now pretending to be family. After all their previous neglect, they never acted like a family, but now expect help just because they're in trouble. I'm sorry, but I have no intention of helping you. Please ask someone else. And from now on, don't contact me. We're estranged, remember? With that, I hung up the phone. The phone rang many times after that, but I deleted the contact and made sure they could never reach me again. Kevin and Mary fell into financial difficulties, leading to constant fights and eventually divorce. Already in debt, Mary returned to her parents, who paid off her debts, and now she's working tirelessly. Kevin sought my help, but I refused. Now he works a day job and a part-time construction job at night, trying to pay off his debts and get by. With my ties to Kevin and Mary cut, and Curtis gone, I have no one I can call family. Living alone brings occasional loneliness, but it's still better than the days of betrayal by Kevin and his wife. I'm not sure if my actions aligned with Curtis's wishes, but I felt a sense of relief. Curtis was a truly honorable man. As his wife, I want to live up to that, ending my life as someone worthy of being Curtis's wife, and I'm doing my best in my own way.